Welcome everyone! So today we're going to talk about how to use our fingers to play a chord on the piano. Now we're just going to do a triad. So this is no 7 chords or anything, just a chord as if it was, say, a C major. And we're going to use that as an example. So what we do in a chord is we use 3 fingers to play our triad. So we usually take our thumb, our middle finger, and our little finger. So you place your thumb on the first note, which is usually the note of the chord, which for us at the moment, for our example, is a C. Then you take your middle finger and place that 2 notes above. Then your little finger will play the note at the top. So if each finger had a key assigned to it, you would play the thumb, middle finger, and little finger. And you would push them all down at the same time. So to practice pushing them down at the same time, there's a few tips, which is curving your fingers. It's kind of hard to play the piano. Pretend this is the keys and you're kind of like pushing them. You're trying to push them like this. Yeah. If you curve your fingers, it's a lot easier. You're like a spider and you can push them rather than trying to move them like this and your fingers are all stiff. When you curve your fingers, you can easily move them. The other thing is lifting your wrist. So when you curved your fingers, but you're trying to play and you're kind of reaching up to the keys. You're trying to reach up. When you lift your wrist, you can just place your fingers wherever they need to go. So when they're like this, your fingers are flat, it's really hard. You're kind of trying to play like this. It's really difficult. You lift your wrist, curve your fingers, and it's so much easier. You can keep your wrist still, but your fingers are the ones doing the movements. All right, so there's a couple of tips for how to play a chord. Now, when you play your first chord with those fingers, no matter what chord it is, it might be a little bit tricky to kind of get these other fingers out of the way. So when you're playing a chord, you want to isolate those 3 fingers. Then that means these other 2 fingers, so your pointer and your ring finger, they have to get out of the way. So I like to think of it as like Spider-Man, but in reverse. So Spider-Man kind of goes around like this. Whereas if you turn your hand over, you can kind of do that position back for your chord. So you've got Spider-Man like this, turn it over, there's your chord. And you're practicing getting these fingers out of the way. When you first start, you can kind of pull them up if you want, just to kind of get used to it. I find people are trying to lift their fingers away, but they can't. So you can kind of pull them up if you need to, get them out of the way. And then the more you do it and the more you practice getting your hand into position, the easier it's going to be. So now my hands just go there really easily. But when I probably first started, it was a long time ago, I can't really remember, I may have had like difficulty kind of trying to move my fingers. So you can do little exercises like this to kind of practice moving the fingers. Gosh, it looks a little bit creepy. So you want to have your thumb, middle finger, and little finger, and you want these 2 fingers out of the way. So that might require kind of pushing one up, pushing one there, and that's like the Spider-Man I was just saying. Yeah. Okay, so that's just about like the feeling of the chord. You also want to do it in your left hand if you can, because playing the chords at the same time can sound really nice. But it's okay when you're first starting to just play a bass note in the left hand. So we want to curve our fingers, lift our wrists so that we can place our fingers down. And we want to practice getting these really strong that they can move out of the way. Yeah, it's about your finger strength and getting them into position. Same as learning guitar. Your fingers have to get used to getting into position. And that's just a quick little tips on how to play a chord when you're kind of not really used to playing it and not really used to moving your fingers and you're just kind of picking up the piano. So curve your fingers, lift your wrist, get rid of those fingers out of the way. Get those fingers out of the way. Hold them if you need to when you first start, and then hopefully eventually you'll be able to push them out of the way without having to use your other hand. All right, happy practicing.